So I've been seeing these videos online popping up on YouTube since the budget came out. Just go to YouTube, type in HMRC. Okay, so videos like this. HMRC will come for you in 2026. HMRC's new powers are insane. HMRC is forcing people to leave the UK. HMRC will get you in 2026. Trapped by HMRC, why you can't escape in 2026. HMRC is watching. 5 red flags that trigger a tax investigation. Ex-HMRC investigator reveals how tax investigations really work. Right, so lots of these videos that are popping up essentially trying to tell us all that we're fucked. Yeah, HMRC are gonna get us. I've watched a couple of them before, but let's just watch one of them now. Let's go for this one. It's got 591,000 views. Channel called Your Accountant. HMRC will get you in 2026. Protect your money.
In 2026, HMRC are going to be coming after more people than ever. And now, of course, I'm not talking about the millionaires or the very wealthy. I'm talking about you, the person who might bake cakes for their local community, a person doing a bit of freelance work on the side, a landlord maybe with one property, or the person who sold a bit of stuff on eBay and made a couple of grand. And here's the reality. Most people that get one of those brown envelopes through the door, they haven't done anything intentionally wrong. They're not tax dodgers. They are just ordinary people getting caught up in a net that's getting bigger, tighter, and more advanced every day. So I'm going to break down exactly why 2026 is going to be the watershed moment for HMRC compliance, what they're actually doing behind the scenes, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself. Because one thing is clear, you don't want to be caught off guard when a letter does arrive. So why am I specifically talking about 2026? What makes this year so critical? Well, it comes down to two fundamental things, really. Number one is it's far easier now for HMRC to track you than ever before. They've been heavily investing in systems and technology over the last few years. And we're talking about billions of pounds going into things like AI, data matching, automated flagging systems. They can see your bank transactions, your online selling activity, your crypto trades, your rental income. They've got data sharing agreements with platforms, with banks and other countries, they're tax authorities. Gone on.
So I think I watched this video before, or maybe I watched bits of it, because this point that he just said about HMRC can see your bank transactions, that's not entirely true in the same sense as the other things that he's mentioned. So let's just go back a little bit.
Talking about billions of pounds going into things like AI, data matching, entries, the digital paper trail. And HMRC has the technology to follow that trail. And number two, and you think rental income, 2 years. And we're talking fundamental things, really, down exactly why 2026 is going to be the watershed moment for HMRC compliance, what they're actually doing behind the scenes, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself. Because one thing is clear. Number one is it's far easier now for HMRC to track you than ever before. They've been heavily investing in systems and technology over the last few years. And we're talking about billions of pounds going into things like AI, data matching, automated flagging systems. They can see your bank transactions, your online selling activity, your crypto trades, your rental income. They've got data sharing.
Right, so yes, he said they can see your what is it? Bank transactions, so online selling activity, crypto trades, your rental income. I mean, it's not quite as straightforward as that. They don't have direct access to all of that all the time, right? It's a case by case basis. Some information does get fed to them automatically, like how much interest you get on your savings in your bank account, right? That'll get fed to them automatically. But other information, they have to request it from the bank, right? So it's not automated as of yet. It could change.
Sharing agreements with platforms, with banks and other countries, they're tax authorities. Gone are the days when you could fly under the radar. Everything is digital now. You think about Apple Pay, you've got Google Pay, PayPal, bank transfers, all of these things, they leave a digital paper trail. And HMRC has the technology to follow that trail. And number two, and being honest here, it's just because the government needs money. They always need money. And HMRC is that direct pipeline to get that money from the largest group of people in this country. It's through taxation, lucratively through fines, penalties, and interest payments. Now, there will be a lot of you, or some of you, that will say, yeah, but HMRC is incompetent. They don't have their act together. And honestly, I can tell you historically, there is some truth to that. They have had limited resources. There's lots of moving parts and things have always slipped through the gaps. But that's exactly why they're investing heavily in technology. Systems don't need coffee breaks, do they? They work 24/7. They can be flagging anomalies. They can run campaigns to identify targets. So this isn't a short-term play.
Right, so this is true what he's saying. HMRC are always developing the system and they're trying to automate more of the systems that they use to find people who are not paying their taxes properly. But it's still not as simple as it makes it sound. And what he said about HMRC being incompetent, they are. Right, they can have a really good system in place, automated system that flags cases, but end of the day, it has to be a human being that has to go in and look at each of the cases and then decide what to do, what the consequences should be, right? And that's the part where you as a taxpayer, another human being, are involved in telling your side of the story. And as long as you can convince this other human being who's representing HMRC at that point, as long as you can convince that person that what you've done is above board, then you're good, right? So, you know, I feel like what's happening here is a bit of fear mongering, and I don't really know about this guy too much. I don't know him personally. I don't know the channel very well either. I've seen a couple of their videos, but it does feel like it's a bit of fear mongering, right? In the sense that it's what they're basically saying is that HMRC systems are getting better, and whilst they used to be incompetent, now they're going to be more competent and they're going to try and catch people out and they're going to be better at doing that. But I'm just not convinced as of yet. Okay, I might be proven wrong. I'm an accountant myself and I have been for over 15 years, and I just don't think that's still the case. These AI systems have been in place before. I know a lot of things are changing right now, but do not be scared and fear-mongered into thinking that you have to now do things differently if you were previously being a bit adventurous with your tax returns. You can still be adventurous. You might just have to embark on a couple of extra journeys on the side to make sure that you're covered, legally speaking, and, you know, in terms of compliance, that you've got a paper trail to support whatever you are submitting to HMRC, and that's always been the game, hasn't it? Now, what you don't want is to be scared by this guy here or any other account or whoever your account is into thinking that, okay, you know, you've got to do these extra things, or, you know, maybe you don't claim all those flights in your holidays, etc., because, you know, so HMRC all of a sudden looking at your social media account. But I think that's a good thing. You can play that to your own advantage. Use a social media account to justify more expenses. It's not that complicated, really, is it? But some accounts just aren't willing to do the, I don't know, they're playing a different game, I guess. Let's carry on watching this guy.
This is an infrastructure that will generate returns for decades. And anyone who thinks that HMRC are just going to lose interest, you know, it's just dangerously short-sighted. Now, as someone who's had oversight of thousands of HMRC cases, I can certainly tell you that we've seen a massive spike over the last year. There's more letters, there's more investigations, there's more nudge campaigns than the year before. And it's only going to increase. So what are these letters about? And who are they targeting? Now, the most common ones we see are around undeclared income. So that's people that typically it might be side hustles, people selling on Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Vinted. Because if you've made over £1,000 in a tax year, you have to declare it. And most people don't even know that. Then we've got crypto trading. They've got data from the exchanges now. So if you've been trading in crypto and you're not declaring those gains, they know. You've got to think now rental income, because there's a lot of people that are landlords just for one property, and any undeclared rental income or overclaimed expenses, or it's just not being accounted for properly when it comes to furnished holiday lets, you're going to be flagged. The side hustles when it comes to freelance work, and then anything basically outside of PAYE, consulting, coaching.
Yeah, so this is true, right? So previously, if you did a bit of work on the side and you made a bit of extra cash, you would have got away with it. Not most likely, in almost every case, you're getting away with it. The people that were getting caught were the kind of people that had other income and they were filing self-assessments, and they got raised to check for other income that they were reporting to HMRC. And then when they looked at the bank statements, they saw additional income coming from maybe Etsy or eBay, etc., which ends up being picked up and then getting penalized a little bit. But let's say you are like a PAYE employee, generally your earnings all are from a salaried job where you're paying taxes when you get your income. And then you're selling some stuff on Etsy, eBay, then yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's not really doing anything for anyone. So I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so now the change that's happened, so websites like Etsy, eBay, Amazon, all these kind of websites where people sell things, they have to directly report sales figures to HMRC, right? So HMRC get those figures automatically. They don't get to see all your bank transactions automatically. They can if they request it, but the stuff like Etsy, Amazon, Uber, all these things that get directly fed to HMRC. So if you're not reporting what you're receiving to your bank account, that's a problem. However, obviously you pay tax on your net income. Now, these websites are only going to report your gross income to HMRC, and HMRC are going to send you some kind of tax liabilities based on the gross income. You should not pay that. You need to either do it yourself or find a good accountant that you actually trust. A good accountant is someone who you can speak to frankly as if he's your friend without having to employ like a weird professional ethical language, etc., right? Let's not play that game. Your friend is not HMRC. Your accountant should be your friend. If your accountant is not your friend and you can't talk to him completely frankly without worrying about whether he's going to report you to HMRC, he should not be your accountant. Anyway, back to the point. If you do have any additional sales from these websites, you need to report that to HMRC. But of course, report it with all your expenses that you have incurred, that you might have incurred. And there's a lot of expenses that people don't understand that they can claim back from HMRC. And by claim back, I mean claim the tax on the expenses if you've made a profit. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, out there, when they say claim it back from HMRC, they think HMRC are going to pay them for expenses. I don't understand why people still have that misconception. But anyway, let me not get sidetracked. Let's carry on watching this video.
Tutoring, graphic design, photography. If money is changing hands and you're not declaring it, you're going to be on their radar more in 2026. Yeah. Then we've got things like capital gains on property investment, selling second-hand property, cashing in shares. There's so much that they're just tracking right now. Now, something to note is that a lot of these letters are phishing letters. They're not 100% sure you've done anything wrong. They're just casting this wide net. They're sending out letters saying, we think you owe us money. Please review your affairs. And that's just a psychological tactic because most people, they do get scared. It makes them panic, and then they just have to sit back and watch them voluntarily hand over information with the outcome of money going into HMRC's hands. So let's talk about the surveillance state. And I'm going to be calling it that for the moment because that's exactly where things could lead. We've got HMRC's Connect, and this is their main data analysis platform. It was originally introduced in 2010, but it's had lots of developments since then. And what it does is it pulls from banks, online platforms, overseas tax authorities, property records, and now social media. They have integrated things such as better algorithms and AI machine learning to identify patterns and flag discrepancies. We've also got bank account monitoring, and this has always been in place, but banks have to report certain transactions automatically. Large cash deposits, transfers from overseas, any regular income that just doesn't match declared earnings. And this is becoming easier for them to report because they can just easily link these systems, so it flags a lot quicker. Like I said, there's platform reporting, which that could be online or crypto, and there's all these sharing across the board of tax jurisdictions ultimately. So there's international cooperation. The common reporting standard means that tax authorities throughout the world are now sharing more information than ever before because they do appreciate it's the best way to get their own houses in order by working together to achieve the same outcome. So if you've got overseas assets, they're finding out about it. Like I touched on about the social media scanning. If you're posting about your business, about your lifestyle, your income on Instagram or any other social, and you're forgetting to declare that to HMRC, they are looking for it. And all these things I mentioned now, this is just a snapshot really of the bigger contenders. But the net is tightening. And if you think you're small enough to slip through, that's exactly what HMRC are counting on. And they've got their algorithms to flag your account. So at some point or another, you will get a review, you will get a letter. Okay, so now let's say that you've got one of these brand envelopes, and I've got one right here. And no, it's not about undeclared income, but this is around capital gains on a property that I sold years ago. Nothing to declare, but it just goes to show you that they are targeting lots of people. Now, the first thing you need to do is you do need to stop and take a breath when you do get a letter. I've got a separate video on this about handling HMRC letters in detail, but the core principle is quite simple. Do not have a knee-jerk reaction. Do not immediately phone them up and go, oh God, I'm so sorry. Yes, I owe you money. Of course I do. Here's my bank account. Take whatever you want. Because the reality is, receiving one of these letters, it does not mean you've done anything wrong. It does not mean that they have any evidence all the time. And it doesn't mean that you're going to get in trouble or be paying huge fines. What it does mean is that their systems flagged something. Maybe accurately, maybe not. Maybe you do owe them some money, maybe you don't. But rushing to...
Yeah, this is good advice. So just as I was saying earlier, if you get a letter from HMRC, it doesn't mean that you should just pay what it says on the letter, because that letter is an estimate. They do not have all your figures, and they definitely don't have your expenses, so they don't know how much tax you actually owe them. Obviously, if you pay it, they're not going to call you and say, oh, are you sure this is the right amount? They'll take that money and they'll sleep happily.
To respond, voluntarily giving information, admitting to things that you're not even sure about yourself. That's how you turn a fishing expedition into a successful catch. And even if you have made a mistake, and to be honest, you've got to understand that most people, it's completely accidental. There is a huge difference in I didn't know I needed to declare this and I was deliberately evading tax. The first one, you might owe some tax back, maybe a small penalty. The second one, that's when they will really go after you with everything they've got, and rightly so. So protect yourself. Don't make it easy for them. Don't walk in with your hands up ready to surrender. Get proper advice, understand what they're actually asking for, and respond strategically, not emotionally. Now, this is a good time to kind of pivot into making tax digital, because this is coming in April 2026 for all sole traders, self-employed, landlords with income over 50,000 at the start. It's going to be a goldmine for HMRC, and I've again touched this before. It's not about generating more tax, it's about generating lots of money through fines and penalties.
So like the problem with a lot of these online videos currently about from the accounting UK tax niche, right, is that they're all essentially a sales pitch for the accounting firm, for the practice. None of these guys are actually just putting information out there to have the information out there. They're all just giving you like the basic minimum that you can find out from ChatGPT, and then they're trying to scare you about what HMRC are going to do if you don't comply with the tax laws, and they make things sound a lot more severe than what the reality actually is. Because obviously what's going to happen is when you watch a video like this and you're not too sure about your own tax affairs, you're going to naturally either contact them or contact your current account and talk about these changes, and the account's going to say, yeah, they can do this, they can do that, etc., right? And because most people don't have an accountant who's like I was saying earlier, like a friend, there's always that double speak involved where no one really likes to talk. You have to like read in between the lines when you're speaking to your account, right? Same thing with like lawyers, etc. When you speak to lawyers and maybe sort of some of the professionals I can't think of right now. But in certain scenarios, people just like, you know what you want. You want to pay as little tax as possible, but you don't want to go to jail. And then if that means if you do something a little bit funny, to maybe reduce your taxes, right? Maybe you claim some expenses that are a bit questionable. It might not be strictly speaking business, but maybe you did some work whilst you were out there in Barbados or Thailand or wherever you went. Maybe you did something, right? And does it make a business trip? I don't know. And it's just, that's the thing. Like, people act like, a lot of accountants act like everything's just like set in stone, and it's very black and white. With some things it is very black and white, But with a lot of things, it's not. And especially now, because the world is so connected and people are like always jetting off from one place to the next place. People are advertising, promoting themselves on social media, on YouTube. Um, it's all a very different game, and you can play. The rules are changing. It's essentially what I'm trying to say. And there's a rule that HMRC are trying to apply, but ultimately, what always sticks is the rule of the people. And the rule of the people sometimes takes a bit of time to settle. Now, we are at a stage where HMRC and the government in general are trying to assert a lot more surveillance. And this is not just in tax, just generally in the wider society. There's a lot more, what should we say? Well, they're collecting a lot more data, right? That's a fact. So, Connect system that was mentioned by this guy on the video, that's been around since 2010, so it's been going for 15 years, and obviously technology has advanced a lot since then. So it's true. Now the system can flag a lot more cases than it would have been possible some years ago for a person to sit there and do. But just because they're flagging a lot more cases doesn't mean they have this many more people to go through these cases. And the reality also is that the people that are going through the cases aren't always as trained, because they're trying to employ new people to deal with this new cases that they're going to flag and check. So really, it's not like the system has it's not like, some we probably are getting there, but right now we're not there yet. That is, we're not in that dystopian future where the computer is so good and the legal system is also, or should we say, partnered up with the AI system to be able to just catch out anyone who's not doing things correctly, right? We are heading there, but I think we're still pretty far from that point where there's no way to um, there's no way to hide, should we say, or hide your money. Um, but you do have to take extra steps. So these change there's as they say, right? There's no smoke without fire. Is that right? Is that the right saying? I don't know, but essentially what these guys are doing is taking some elements of the truth, and then they are highlighting only one side of the story, and then for the other side of the story is, the emotional response that you have from watching this video and thinking, right, okay, I'm scared, what do I do? HMRC going to come for me, I need to pay taxes, maybe I need to pay more. All these thoughts are going over your head, and only for most of people out there to go to the accountant who's just going to tell you, yeah, you need to just comply with all those new rules and systems and you need to just pay more taxes. But then what's the point of having an accountant if they're not trying to save money for you? And it's like, it frustrates me because obviously the elite class of people, the ruling class of people, they don't pay a fair share of tax. Like, that's just pretty much a fact, right? And I mean, in my books, it's a fact. Now, I know there's people out there arguing against it, and they'll try and sort of swindle the way out of that fact by saying, "Oh, rich people do this, rich people do that, etc., etc." But like, just forget all of that bollocks. Like, it's plain and easy to see, isn't it? Like, if the rich people paid their fair share, then society would be fairer. Like, there wouldn't be so much inequality. There wouldn't be so much like stress and anxiety in people's minds of, just like we should be flourishing, but we should be thriving, but we're just not surviving. That's what's happening. Anyway, I don't want to get carried away. Bringing it back to tax specifically, you know, just because HMRC have more powers now of um, how to essentially keep a closer eye on you, it doesn't mean that you suddenly have to just bend over and say, okay, right, go on and do me. I mean, it's not like that. There's still things you can do to keep more of your money to yourself, right? Best strategy is always to pay some tax. If you're making profit, pay some taxes, but you don't need to pay. You don't need to pay too much, basically. And the ways to pay less isn't even some super complicated thing that an accountant needs to sit down with you for hours and hours and figure out, like, generally these accountants, us accountants will essentially use the same kind of strategies on all different clients, but then charge thousands of pounds to implement them. And well and truly, like, people, like someone smart enough, a little bit of intellect would mean that you could do this yourself. And you probably should do it yourself. Like, if you don't have an account, you can just turn up and be like, listen, I made £100,000 this year. I don't want to pay any more than £10,000 in tax. Make it happen. And he should be like, yeah, cool. Let's figure out how to make it happen. And I guarantee you, like 99% of the people out there are paying more taxes than they need to, right? And some people might think like it's unethical to not want to pay taxes, right? And in principle, I agree with that. However, the reality of our current system and the current climate is that the people that are setting the rules are not paying their fair share of the taxes. And then they expect us to pay not the fair share, but they expect us to pay more every year, right? So inflation keeps going up, but your tax rates go up, but your allowances don't go up. Your expense allowances don't go up. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just I'm not knowledgeable enough to go deep into all these economic issues, but I'm telling you, from a tax perspective, like, if your tax money was getting used for the right purposes, if the NHS was getting fixed, if the schools were improving, if the homelessness was being targeted and any real intent was shown to, like, deal with all the issues, then fair enough, pay your taxes. But none of that's happening. And it's not because of a lack of money that it's not happening. It's not happening because the people that can make changes, they just don't want to make changes because they don't really care, to be honest with you. They're interested in achieving other goals which don't necessarily align with the goals of the general public.
So here's how it works in simple terms. Instead of that one annual self-assessment, you'll need to submit quarterly updates through MTD-compatible software. If you miss a deadline, that's a fine. If you make an error, that's also a fine. If you submit it in the wrong format, you'll get fined again. And if you're not keeping digital records, that is a fine. And the data shows that people will fail. People do forget deadlines, and mistakes are going to happen. So this is a big revenue opportunity for HMRC. But there is also another angle of MTD. It is deliberately annoying, it's deliberately burdensome. And you know what happens when you push too much compliance?
Some more fear mongering to just get you calling him and other accountants.
And I mean anything really. You need to be documenting it. You need to be keeping records. You can use accounting software if you really need it. But to be honest, a well-maintained Excel spreadsheet is better than nothing. And it does work for me.
A well-maintained Excel spreadsheet is better than software. I'll tell you that right now. Because softwares, maybe they already are, I don't know. But sooner or later, softwares are going to start transferring all your accounting information directly to HMRC, probably without you even knowing about it, right? And it's probably not too far away. So use an Excel spreadsheet, because really that's all you need. Unless you're running, obviously, like a big business. I'm talking to the people that, like, self-employed, small businesses, like people that make maybe up to 500k a year, right? Yeah, I don't know. I've not really dealt with clients. Excuse me. I've not dealt with clients beyond like those kind of sums, so I don't really know in detail or in practice how things work for them. But if you're earning up to 500k and you're trying to keep your money in your pockets and not in HMRC's pockets, then this information is for you. Keep an Excel spreadsheet. Don't use softwares, unless you've got some high volume sale kind of business, in which case use softwares just to record sales, and then use like a different software for expenses or something, or like some kind of a local software that uses it locally. The cloud is, it can be your best friend and it can also be your worst enemy.
For me, you need to track your income, track your expenses, keep receipts, keep bank statements, keep invoices. Just make sure you have that paper trail. And why? It's because if HMRC do come knocking, You want to be the person who opens that door with a comprehensive file in their hand of everything. And when they see that, they think, this person knows what they're doing. They're not going to be an easy target. It's going to cost us more to pursue an audit, an investigation in resources than what we're going to get back. So let's go for an easier target. Now, step 2 is, this is really crucial now, understand tax efficiency. Because what people don't really realize, or lots of people don't realize, if you're generating income outside of PAYE, you are running a business. And if you're running a business, you're entitled to deduct allowable expenses. Now, let me just give you an example. I said at the start, if you're making cakes for your local community, but let's just say you're making cakes, right? You make 3,000 revenue, so not lots of money, but HMRC writes to you and says that you haven't declared this. You panic and go, oh no, I owe tax on £3,000. But hold on, you bought ingredients, right? You bought the flour, the eggs, the packaging, you bought lots of equipment. You use part of your home for baking. You drive to deliver those cakes. You market on social media. All of that's all allowable expenses. So suddenly that £3,000 revenue, that figure that they have, you might actually owe tax only on 500 because of those legitimate expenses. And you only pay tax on profit, not revenue. That's tax efficiency, understanding the rules and using them properly. But most people just don't know this. They don't know what's allowable. They don't know how to calculate it properly. So they do end up paying more than they should. And think about it from HMRC side. They're not going to tell you because it's not in their interest for you to be tax efficient. It's not. If you get it wrong, it opens a door for them to have more money and to issue penalties if you've over-declared. So if you're earning money outside of PAYE, don't wait for HMRC to contact you. Get ahead of it. Register for self-assessment if you need to. Understand the £1,000 training allowance. Know when you cross thresholds that do require declaration. Stay informed about changes. MTD is coming in April. Are you ready? Do you know what software you need? Have you got your digital record keeping sorted? If you've got an accountant, have they got a plan for MTD? If they don't even know what you're kind of talking about when you mention it to them, that's kind of a red flag, isn't it? You need to be proactive. It means being prepared. It means you're not scrambling when a letter does arrive. It means you're operating from...
Right, people shouldn't be scared about MTD because, yeah, it's annoying. You're gonna have to do more reporting through the year, but it is what it is. Like it just means that you need to plan more in advance about your expenses and where you find your tax efficiency, as they say, right? Yeah, it's not that complicated. Like these days, like if you can use the software and if you can watch a few YouTube videos, you can do all this stuff yourself. Like it's really not that difficult at all. Especially if you're not doing anything that's like complex tax wise. And to be honest, most people at that level of small business and like new business owners, like you're not really going to face anything that ChatGPT can't answer.
Position of strength, not panic. Now, I'm not going to sit here and hard sell you on accountants, but what I will say is when it comes to tax efficiency, things do change constantly. There are reliefs, there are allowances, exemptions, and most people just don't even know they exist. Now, a good accountant isn't someone who files your tax return. There's someone who looks at your situation or your business and goes, you're paying too much. How can we reduce that legally? There's someone who...
Legally? Okay. If you want to reduce your taxes legally, ask ChatGPT. I'm telling you, it's got almost all the answers. But like, I guess I hope like this is what I always wonder about their accounts. I think like behind closed doors, are they able to be frank with their clients? Because I work with like a small group of clients, and I've always taken on clients that I have a personal connection with, because I can't really be that person who tells you that you gotta do this, because if you don't, HMRC are gonna get you, because fuck HMRC.
Understands the industry specific release available to you and the industry that you're working and operating in. There's someone who is constantly monitoring changes in legislation, so you don't have to. And critically, if HMRC come after you, there's someone who knows how to handle it, how to respond, what information to provide, what to push back on. They're your shield. The way that I see it is ultimately, if you're running operations, whether that's a successful business, you've got multiple income streams, you've got property investment, the money that you should be saving through tax efficiency should pay for your accountant multiple times over. So that's not an expense. That's an investment with guaranteed return.
Very true. If you find a good accountant who is going to make sure that you only pay £10,000 when your business made £100,000, then he is worth paying £5,000 to. because he's saving you about 15 at the very least.
And if this applies to you, just give it a thought. Now, here's what it all boils down to. We live in a society where the majority of working people are in PAYE. Their taxes are taken automatically. They have no control. When the government wants more money, they just adjust thresholds and they just take more. And there's nothing that those people can do about it. Everyone else, the self-employed, the entrepreneurs, the landlords, the people with side hustles, whoever they are, they're the ones that HMRC has to constantly chase. And they're ramping up their efforts because technology now exists to make it more efficient for them to do so. But what really drives me to make these types of videos is because most of the people that get caught in this net, they're just not bloody criminals. They're not deliberately dodging tax. They're ordinary people who might have made a mistake or didn't understand the rules. Or generally, they didn't think their small side hustle income needed declaring. And that is absolutely reasonable. It's not everyone's dream to be a numbers and regulation guru. And HMRC knows this. They know most people will just panic and pay whatever they're asked to. And I know this because I've spoken to hundreds of people who have done exactly that.
Same. Like the amount of time I get letters, clients messaging me with this letter saying, "Shall I pay this?" It's for them to pay by, for 20, 48 days, 28 days, something. And shall I pay it now? They get all panicky and they just want to pay it. And I'll be like, what are you paying? Like, what's this bill for? And they're like, I don't know, but HMRC have sent me a letter saying I owe them this money. And they just like, they just want to pay it just because some HMRC said they have to pay it. It's mad. Like, literally, fear is HMRC's biggest tool. Like, you don't have to just comply. Like, at least not to that level. Do you know what I mean? Comply to the degree that, you stay off the radar. But to just jump off and
know that most people won't claim all their allowable expenses. They know most people just won't push back or even get proper advice. And these are easy targets. They're soft targets. So again, the solution, knowledge, preparation, and not being an easy target. We all have an obligation to pay our taxes. We absolutely do. The country needs funding, public services need funding, and nobody's arguing against that. But
I'm arguing against it because the money is not being used for those purposes. All right, you just have to look at where the budget goes, and you have to look at the state of the hospitals, how long you have to wait to see a doctor, how those doctors are mentally, and like how shitty teachers' pay is, and how crappy like pensioners' lives are. Like it's ridiculous, really. Like in 2025 in the UK, which is supposedly one of the richest countries in the world, like people still live in like pretty dire conditions. And even those people that are materially appearing to be like doing all right in life, like mentally and they're not doing good. Most people just have anxiety and depression and all this bullshit and other diseases, etc. And like don't want to be doomsayer, but the reality is plain and easy for everyone to see. And at this current time, if you think that is the right thing to do, to pay your taxes, and when the people that really should be picking up the weight and making sure society is fixed up, they're not doing anything, they're doing all sorts of crazy madness that they're getting away with all the time, like even when the evidence is blatantly there for everyone to see, like it's mental, isn't it? So I don't agree with this guy on this point at all.
Have zero obligation to pay a bloody penny more than we legally owe. Zero. If you're being tax efficient, if you're keeping proper records, if you're staying compliant and protecting yourself with proper advice, you're doing everything right. And this isn't about dodging anything. You're just not being taken advantage of. And in 2026,
you can dodge a lot and still stay compliant.
with HMRC and our government ramping up their efforts, that's going to matter more than ever before. So if you've made it this far, you clearly understand the stakes here. You get that in 2026 onwards, it's going to be different. You get that you need to protect yourself more than ever. So here's what you can do. You can download our free guide in the description. It's how to protect yourself from HMRC in 2026. It will break down everything you need to know about getting your house in order, what records to keep, how to stay compliant, understanding your obligations, and ultimately helping you maximize your tax efficiency. It's completely free, so download it, read it, implement it, because the worst time to be figuring this stuff out is when you've already got one of those brown envelopes in your hand. And look, if you're running a business, if you've got complex income streams, or you're worried about your current setup, or whether your accountant is actually protecting you, you can get in touch with us. We've got specialist teams throughout the UK dealing with e-commerce, property, freelance, MTD preparation. Whatever your situation, we've got the right people in the UK who live and breathe this stuff. All right? So it's not just about ticking boxes. It's about making sure you're keeping as much as your hard-earned money as you can, all legally, while staying compliant. because in 2026, that's going to
while staying compliant.
be the difference, to be honest with you. Links in the description for the guide. Now, if this video has helped, please do hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this, and drop a comment below, just letting me know, your biggest concerns. It could be around HMRC or just going into 2026. I try and read as many of the comments as I can and answer as best as possible. Key things here, though: stay smart, stay protected, and I'll see you in the next video.
Stay smart indeed. Yeah, so that's that, I guess. The reality is, like, don't live under fear, bro. Like, don't think just because HMRC have all these powers that they can just, that you have no flexibility left in how you do your tax returns. Trust me, you have flexibility. If anything, more flexibility. You just gotta play the game back at them, and like, the way things are going economically in terms of like tax policies and other fiscal policies, etc., like, if we continue to just comply with these kind of rules, these kind of legislation, then all that's going to happen is over time they're just going to take more wealth away from us. They're already doing it. Inequality is growing. Everyone already knows that. And it's just, this is a fight for not just for you and me, but for our next generations, because it's a slow game. And I mean, I don't even know how slow it is, because now I think they're picking up the pace on how quickly they want to take more wealth and assets away from the general public and into the hands of the political elite, the ruling elite, And to be honest, sometimes it's not even the politicians are just small fish, aren't they? It's the people that we don't really know the names of. And you can't, you can't really fight them, but you don't have to comply with them. I mean, you can fight them. I think fighting them is not complying with the rules. That is the first step. And there's not much HMRC can do. If you're just a little bit smart about how you do your taxes, you can pay little taxes and sometimes no taxes, and there's not much HMRC will be able to do. Like, it's not like it's a game, it's a narrative, it's a story. Obviously, like, if you're making millions and millions, it's a different story. But when you're starting out in business, you shouldn't be paying any taxes unless you've got other reasons, like you want to get finances and mortgages, etc. So you've got to show high profitability. But really, in the first few years of your business, you should just be focused on like saving all your money. And when you need to apply for that finance and mortgage, like, there are ways around these things, and so many people don't know these things, and everyone just follows the herd, everyone just follows the system because people are just too scared. And really, it's about time we stop being so scared.